It's Tuesday, May 7th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, we talk with Chief Sonneman, learn more about the public information officer duties at the Barnstable Police Department, and we get a look at the nearly completed Hyannis Fire Department's new fire station. Now for a look at municipal and legislative news. And the winner is Barnstable's best dog is Gracie. Congratulations to Jason and Vanessa Rowland from Marston's Mills. Gracie, the Black Lab mix, garnered 63 votes. Congratulations. Barnstable Police Chief Sonneman joins us to talk about crosswalk safety and what does a public information officer do. Crosswalk safety. Here at Town Hall, we know about trying to cross the street on South Street and looking both ways, but sometimes accidents do happen.
Even in uniform, it can be difficult. Sometimes you got to wait. You know, you're right. It is crossing the crosswalk is a lot harder than you would think it would be sometimes.
It is, and it seems like we've been talking about this recently too. Is distracted driving seems to play a little bit in this whole piece of people either a little too fast coming down the road and not realizing.
Sometimes it does, and I'm not sure because sometimes when I go to cross the crosswalk and you look at the people that don't stop. And it's like they're just not looking. They're just looking like straight ahead. They're just tunnel vision focus on where they're going. So it's not always the distracted driving. Right. And I'm not sure that. And I think so many different variables. And sometimes it really just comes down to people just don't pay any attention to when they're driving. They just kind of zone out. And driving is an activity that requires your attention. And so playing with the phone doesn't work. But even just when you're driving, just look around your environment, see what's going on, because you don't know what's happening around you. You got to be aware of it. You got to read the signs, see where people are on the sidewalks, where people are on the street, who's pulling out in front of you.
Right.
You got to pay attention. It's an active activity that you have to participate in.
Right. As is actually crossing in the crosswalk.
Yes.
Too. So don't be looking at your phone.
And the same thing applies when you're crossing a crosswalk. I mean. Just because there's a crosswalk there doesn't mean people are going to be paying attention that you're crossing.
Right.
Look both ways, pay attention. But even then, sometimes it doesn't help. In this instance, last Tuesday, the young lady was going to Cape Cod Community College and trying to cross Route 132 up by the school. And she looked both ways, stepped out in the crosswalk, and the driver hit her anyway. And the driver wasn't on the phone or distracted as far as we know, just not paying attention.
Right. So that incident back on the 30th, really, people were all around that area. Walk us through kind of what happened.
Well, apparently the driver of the car had kind of stopped to let somebody make a turn, and then just accelerated and went. Wasn't anticipating that the person was going to cross the crosswalk, and the person crossed the crosswalk, and could have been. We really don't know at this point. I don't know what people are thinking when they're doing things. Who knows? Pedestrian thought, well, she stopped. Maybe she's stopping for me, and starts going. And the driver thinks, oh, they're not in the. Just goes ahead and go. But either way, you got to stop for the crosswalk. People are there at the crosswalk. You stop. You let them cross.
All right. Talk a little bit about reconstructing an accident scene. You have going through the police academy was actually one of the very interesting sessions. There's a lot that goes into that. I didn't realize. I mean, there's drones and there's all sorts of latitude and longitude of where people were and where the vehicles were.
It's its own investigation. You got to figure out where points of impact were. You got to talk to witnesses because. Quite honestly, people who are not in the car or standing on the sidewalk have a completely different perspective than the driver or the person that's crossing the crosswalk or the people involved in any accident. Sometimes the witnesses hear and see things that, people driving the cars are not paying attention. They're playing with their radios or whatever. They think they see things or their mind makes them, I remember this, but it didn't actually happen that way. And then they can look at the cars and they can determine if brake lights are on or off and take measurements and figure out where cars were, figure out how fast cars were going. So it's a whole specialty training that we send people to learn how to do. And you're right, the drones get up there. In the old days, we used to have to close the road down. And we still do to a certain extent, close the road down to take all kinds of measurements over a couple of different days. But now you can put a drone out there, do one set of measurements, and the drone can go out there and take a picture and scale everything down, and we can figure out where everything was based on the use of the drone. So it helps out immensely in that angle.
But that team doesn't go out for every
Not
fender
everything,
bender,
no,
right?
no.
It's usually some
Usually
type of
it's-
injury, or
Usually it's when somebody's seriously injured or there's a death involved, or if it's complex. You know, the more complex cases we get involved, you're right. You know, someone opens their door and Stop and Shop and dings your door. We're not calling out. You know, we're not calling out the drone to take pictures. And well, some people wish we would, but
right.
you know, we don't invest that much into that. We do what is appropriate for those levels of investigation, and then for the more serious accidents, it's like having a detective. You know, when certain detectives come out for certain crimes,
Right.
accident reconstruction come out for other accidents and stuff like that. And we do work cooperatively with other police departments on the Cape, so we share resources as far as investigative tools with the reconstruction team and all that other stuff.
So what's the message for folks out there this week,
it's
right?
the same message we say all the time. Pay attention, you know, pay attention to yourself, to your surroundings, and what's going on while you're driving.
Right.
And while you're walking.
Right.
Just pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention. What does a public information officer do? How are events and investigations communicated to the general public, and when? Sergeant Eric Driftmeyer, PIO for the Barnstable Police Department, joins us for an in-depth look at the position. What does the public need to know, and when do they need to know it? With me today, Public Information Officer for the Barnstable Police Department, Sergeant Eric Driftmeyer. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you for having me, Paula. Appreciate it.
So, public information, when do you tell people things and when do you don't? There's been lots of instances where people say, well, geez, we should have known this, or why did they release that information now? Tell us a little bit about what your job is as a PIO.
Well, basically, as the public information officer, I kind of manage the public information that needs to get out to the public, and what format that goes out in, and what is proper to disseminate and what may not be. We certainly have guidelines that we work within, and those parameters come from both the state and federal level in terms of statutory restrictions on certain types of incidents, and our own policies and procedures, where we try and balance between the public's right to know and their need to know information, and our ability to preserve information for purposes of investigations and prosecution and following through on cases.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about some of those instances where you've had to do that balancing act. I know that sensitive information, especially domestic assault, sexual assault, you're never really going to tell people a lot of those details. Is that correct?
Correct. So you've touched on some of the statutory restrictions that I mentioned. There are two basic laws in Massachusetts that prevent police officers from disseminating information that pertain to any type of sexual assaults, information pertaining to a rape or attempted sexual assaults, and any abuse-related cases involving domestic partners, family members, household members, things of that nature. So those cases are confidential. They remain confidential. And the second part, or the second law, which really plays off the first, is we at the police department, or any police department in the Commonwealth, always maintain a daily log. And any member of the public can come in during business hours and they can view that log. There's no charge to that. But that log is going to be sanitized of those very incidents that I talked about. Anything related to a sexual assault, a rape, or domestic violence is not going to be contained in that information, and we're not going to disseminate that information in any type of press release.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the press. You know, there's all sorts of derogatory things that the press has had to deal with over the last couple of years, but when you're dealing with the press, their right to know, how does that play with the information that you can share with them?
Basically, I think we maintain a very good relationship with our local media outlets, and they understand that there are certain aspects of a case, certain information that we're not going to release. If there's any sort of indication that the general public safety may be compromised, officers involved in the case, witnesses, victims, things of that nature, we're going to weigh the need to know versus the severity of what could happen if that information were to get out. And the local media are very good about that, and they understand what we can and cannot give them.
Right. How has the rise of social networking media kind of changed your job a little bit? There seems to be that there was a feel-good story. Somebody lost a ring or a bracelet or a watch, and you put that out on Facebook as a need to know, and it goes viral.
Right. So social media platforms have exploded in recent years, and some good and some bad. We try to leverage our Facebook page and Twitter account to disseminate pertinent information. The case you speak of was really a positive outcome. We had a piece of property that had been recovered from a previous crime. It was something that we recognized of value. We didn't know who the owner was, and by simply placing it a photo and a description of it on our Facebook page, we were able to reconnect that very family heirloom back to its rightful owner. So that was a positive and a good use of social media. We also use our Facebook page to not only communicate crimes and other events that have taken place in town, but to also show the community and enhance that bond that we have with the community by showing them a lot of the activities and programs that we have at the police department that enrich the community overall. School resource officers that work in the Barnstable school system, our adopt-a-school officers who are out in the elementary schools, the Citizens Police Academy, the Student Police Academy that's in the high school, and of course our Community Impact Unit. Those are all positive stories that we have a platform and we're able to put out to the public, in addition to some of the not so nice things.
Right. And when we talk about not so nice things, so when you issue a press release, that goes out obviously to the media outlets that are out there, to the general public through whatever social media that you might be using. Is there a timing issue with that when you do that, or is that like immediate? Once you have the information, it goes out, or do you hold things back? Is kind of what I'm saying.
I think it's a case-by-case basis, and it really depends on the nature of of what we're trying to report. Certainly, if an incident has occurred, say in the overnight hours, and I come in the next morning, and there's already some buzz about what's going on, maybe I've already had a couple of phone calls or emails from the local media, I'll put something together relatively quick, because it's apparent to me that the public and the media have already received some information, and they're eager and they're interested to know what's occurred, and they have a right to know. The community has a right to know, geez, what took place overnight. Right. So I'll usually recognize that as somewhat time sensitive, put something together and try and get it out in the morning hours. Other types of press releases that you typically see, which are the culmination of a long investigation, typically something narcotics related. A lot of the information is going to come from our investigative unit, and that's a much slower process, and we're basically reporting to the media and to the community what's transpired over a longer period of time, and this was the end result.
Right. How does this work on the hierarchy of chain? So do you report to somebody else, or do you report straight to the chief?
The chief is ultimately responsible for all public information. Right. I basically, as the PIO, act as his designee. So my job is to kind of manage that information within the parameters that we discussed, decide what's relevant, what should go out, and to coordinate. If we were to hold a press conference for something, I would coordinate that effort, and to be a spokesperson of the police department. But the ultimate responsibility lies with the chief, and I report directly to the chief.
And to kind of like wrap this up, what do you want the general public to understand and know about this position and about the information that's released from the police department?
I think the public should know that the Barnstable Police Department puts forth a great effort to maintain a strong relationship with the community, and the PIO position is really a part of that effort. I already mentioned some of our other programs that engage in outreach with the community, whether it's through the schools or through the Community Impact Unit and the Citizens Police Academy. The PIO is a part of that puzzle. We maintain, I maintain the social media platforms, and through that we're able to leverage a lot of what we do and communicate that with the public. It's really a part of the effort to gain some legitimacy with the community, build that trust, and maintain that level of support.
Fantastic. Thanks so much
All
for
right.
joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me. Thank you very much.
The new Hyannis Fire Station has entered the third phase of construction, with new apparatus bays, a mechanic shop, and a training tower. Channel 18 put on the hard hats and got a tour of the new utility facility. So explain to me here what we're looking at. So these are pull-through bays.
That's correct.
Those are complete?
That's right. Each of the red doors are a pull-through bay. What you see to the right over here, from that ambulance over, the building is complete. That is what they called phase 1. Phase 2 of this project was actually knocking down our old existing building.
Okay.
What you see from the ambulance to the left is what they call phase 3, which is 2 more drive-through bays and the repair shop.
Okay. And these drive-through bays, do they accommodate all your apparatus?
That's correct. That's correct. We have the ability to put a vehicle in any position.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Let's take a look inside.
Absolutely. Where we just entered into, this is the repair shop.
Wow.
As you can see, there is no cross-beam structure across this part of the repair shop.
Right.
So that gives me now the ability to take our tower truck, which is 48 feet long and 80,000 pounds, and lift it in the air in the building. It also gives me the ability to take the aerial part of the ladder truck, swing it off to the side to lift the cab in the building.
My goodness. So with this design, as the master mechanic, was your input like kind of?
Absolutely. Yep. Every phase of the way for this room, I can honestly say that they included me in every part of it. Measuring the vehicles. What I did was based everything off the ladder truck, our biggest, heaviest vehicle.
Right.
So then everything else is kind of a no-brainer. It would fit in here perfect.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep.
So that ladder truck, that's a big piece of apparatus.
It sure is. It sure is. And it gives me the ability to put my jacks on each wheel and lift it above my head in here.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about this building and what you'll do here besides just the mechanics piece.
This will be, well, it'll be all the maintenance on all the vehicles. It'll be all our small pumps. Basically anything that breaks will go through this room.
Okay.
In some phase.
Right.
Whether I fix it here or whether I determine I can't fix it here and it has to be sent out.
Right.
That all goes through this room.
Right. And there are other people that will help you do this mechanic stuff, or is this all on you?
Right now it's all on me.
Okay.
It's all on me. I don't know what the future holds, but right now it's all on me.
Okay.
Right.
And talk a little bit about the longevity of some of these vehicles. If you can keep them on the road longer, what's
absolutely.
that cost savings?
You know, I don't have an exact number figure for you, but I can honestly
Right.
say this, that your basic pumping engine is probably in the $700,000 range.
Right.
So the longer you can keep it on the road, that's definitely a savings for the community. Absolutely.
My goodness.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's
Yep.
fantastic.
Yep.
Anything else you want to tell us about the building?
Let me see here.
Any technology?
Heated floors.
Heated floors.
Heated floors, make-up heat in the ceiling, just in case you open up the door and the floor doesn't quite get the temperature up quick enough. You have make-up heaters in the ceiling.
Right.
Down in the back here, that's actually going to be my stock room for all the parts, nuts and bolts, my toolbox, everything will be in there. Off to the left, that little cove you see to the left will be my office.
Oh.
Above the whole repair shop is going to be a mezzanine with storage. So I can put my tires up there, all my heavy pieces, to keep this floor as open as I possibly can for room to work on.
All right. Give me an indication of the difference from this to where you just came from.
Oh, it's night and day. It's night and day. The old building was basically a garage. You have to also realize too that when that building was built, vehicles weren't the size they are now. You know, we didn't have this type of technology. We didn't have the lift systems and all that like we have now. Yeah, we've just evolved, and with the evolution comes, you need space. You really need space for these vehicles, absolutely, without a doubt. And trust me, we'll fill this up.
Excellent.
We will fill this up.
In this phase, in phase 3 of the construction, where you just went over the mechanics bay, we also have 2 more apparatus bays that we're incorporating in this section of the building, and some support rooms that'll stretch along this area here to break up the area from these bays and the existing bays that are already built. So right now, we had to build this temporary wall, which went up during phase 1. So when we took down our old building, that was fully enclosed. They're in the process now of starting to take down that temporary wall. And then they'll finish up these support rooms. And these support rooms will include our breathing air room, so our SCBAs, which we wear into fires for our air tanks.
Yeah.
There'll be a maintenance room for those. There'll be a work room so we can work on saws and equipment. There'll be a wash room where we could have all our vehicle supplies all our supplies for washing the vehicles. And then the hose tower, which we've incorporated training. As part of this project, we've tried to incorporate as much training into the building as possible. So there'll be some training props up on the mezzanine over these support rooms. We'll be able to do some confined space entry down into the rooms below through manhole covers. We'll have simulated walls that we could breach. And in the hose tower itself, we can do high-rise operations, throw ladders to it, work the standpipes, and just do different evolutions in the building itself as part of our training, which is nice, which we really didn't have the ability in the old station. The old station was about 18,000 square feet. This one's close to 34,000 square feet. So it gives us...
You've doubled the space, but you've also created this ability to do so many more things in that space.
Yeah, and even with doubling the space, there are still sections that are still tight for us, which everything is manageable and it's going to work great for us. And we've kind of, as far as future growth, if we have future growth, we've kind of accounted for that in the building. So we've, like, for instance, the bunk rooms, we added an extra bunk in every bunk room. We've added, we have some mezzanine support space. If we had to add more office space on the administration side, we can take over that mezzanine space, which we use for storage now. And then if we had to move this way, we could actually push the mechanic out if we had to, years down the road.
I'm sure Ron would have an issue with that, but...
But if we ever had to,
right.
We have the ability to do that, which is nice.
Right. So what else about this process that is going to, number one, make the community safer, and two, better prepare the staff and crew at the Hyannis Fire Department?
It's just a much more healthier building for personnel. We had a lot of issues, asbestos issues, sewage issues, backing up raw sewage in the old building. There's some mold issues. So it's a much healthier building for the personnel working out of it. And then as far as technology, we've really improved our technology, which helps us get out the door faster. We're in the process of reducing our response time. Even though it's a bigger building, the way it's set up and designed is we put a lot of thought into the way we flow through the building to our gear racks, to the apparatus, and get out the doors. And the way we've set up our dispatch with the assistance of the police, we've moved dispatch over to the police, and we've incorporated a new alerting system that as soon as the call comes in and they accept it, it's toning out for us here. So we don't have that delay and have to wait for a dispatcher to take all that information and then activate the alerting system. It automatically does it as soon as they press a key on their keyboard back in the police station.
That's amazing. Give me a sense of I guess the feeling of the rest of the staff here, now that you're into the building, it's almost near that completion. How is the staff reacting, besides the faster response time, but how are they reacting? Is it a little bit easier to come to work every day?
Yeah, there's much more buy-in and it's much more acceptance from the staff. We did a great job. We lived out of that building for a long time and it served us well. We just outgrew it. And with this building, like I said, we do have the room, for instance, our apparatus floor. Over there, we had to back apparatus in on angles. It was tight. You had to be careful pulling a truck out or backing it in. Right. We had to share bays. Over here, we have plenty of room to work around the trucks. We have the firefighter area is well laid out for them, and it's much more enjoyable coming to a station that the community has invested in, and basically provides us with all our needs to do the calls, which we're still doing roughly 20 calls a day in between, all the construction that's going on. And the way we phased it was pretty good. It is a little tough right now where we're limited to 4 bays. We have to kind of strategically position apparatus outside, or we had to rent space over at the mall. But once this portion of the building's done, we'll be able to house all our current apparatus, which will be great, because we've never had that ability. Even the old station, we had to park equipment outside. So this station will suit our needs a lot better than anything we've ever had.
Right. And give us a rough time frame of completion.
So we should be done mid to late June. The project should be completely done, which is coming up quick. Time is flying by. So we're looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to having our first full summer out of the station. So.
Right. Any last thoughts for residents of Hyannis?
No, we just appreciate the support that the community has given us. It's been tough because just the burden on the taxpayers on Hyannis, they're footing the whole entire bill. So it's not spread throughout the town, so we're very grateful for their support. It took us a number of tries, but they came out that last time and they support the fire department. We really appreciate what they provided us here.
Excellent. Well, we'll come back when all the trucks are in the bay.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Thank you. Up next, things to do, places to go, and people to meet. Barnstable Public Schools will have a groundbreaking ceremony on Wednesday, May 8th at 11 a.m. for Phase 1 of the Barnstable High School Master Field Plan. The groundbreaking will take place at the Barnstable High School Varsity Baseball Field, 744 West Main Street in Hyannis. There will be representatives from Barnstable Public Schools, the Town of Barnstable, and the Town Council attending the ceremony. The public is encouraged and welcome to attend the ceremony. Comments, suggestions, accolades, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Email us or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works. For you, I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.